Good evening to all and welcome to SC Securities weekly market presentation for this week. And let me begin with the market performance and as usual, and then I will look into some key economic highlights and some updates from the global financial markets and commodity markets as well. So, starting off with the market performance for this week also the Colombo Stock Exchange gained a negative start with having points decline in both the indices. The SPI and S&P SL 20, both the indexes lost or decline in points during the day. So by the end of first trading day on Tuesday after the holiday on the day previous, SPI lost around 169 points to close at 8,516.40, whereas S&P SL 20 index also lowered to close at 2,554.01. And if we have a look at what really happened during the day, the selling pressure that was persisted ahead of the upcoming budget and the uncertain economic outlook came with effect to result that sort of a big selling pressure, and that's why the indexes have been declined. And if we have a look at the turnover levels, that was amounted to be a value of around 2 billion with the elevated selling pressure, and foreign purchases however picked up on a positive note to report a value of around 533 million on contrary to 4 million worth of foreign sales. And then when it comes to the Wednesday's trading session, market gained a slight turnaround and reported an increase in terms of both the indices. So SPI gained around 86 points to close at 8,602.97, whereas S&P SL 20 index also gained up by 54 points to close at 2,608.15. And during the day, turnover level, however, declined to report just a value of around 1.3 billion. And during the day, for another trade session, during the day, foreign purchases picked up to report a value of 102 million over 10 million worth of foreign sales. And the positive sentiment continued during Thursday's trading session as well, whereas SPI by the end of the day gained around 200 points to close at 8,802.23, whereas S&P SL 20 index also gained up by around 69 points to close at 2,677.03. And the turnover level was slightly higher from the previous day to report a value of 1.3 billion. And foreign purchases for another trade session record a value of 206 million over 13 million worth of foreign sales. But this positive sentiment was somewhat turned down during the Friday's trading session, and the Burs ended up in red territory with having lost of around 73 points in SPI to close at 8,728.6 for the week, and S&P 20 index also lost around 35 points to close at 2,642.4. And during the day, turnover level was the lowest for the week. That was amounted to be a value of just 1 billion. And foreign purchases reported a value of 142 million, whereas foreign sales stood at just 5 million. And looking at the Treasury yields for another trade session, it's for the second consecutive session, Treasury yields remain the same. So as of now, 3-month yield is now at 33.05% and 6-month yield is at 32.53% and 12-month yield is at 29.60%. And looking at the spot rates, compared to that of USD, KR was slightly appreciated throughout the week, but when it compares with the GBP, UR and GPY, the rupee was slightly depreciated. Looking at some of the key economic highlights from the economic part of Sri Lanka, it was reported that Sri Lanka's merchandise exports for the month of September has grew by 5.75% year on year to report a value of 1.09 billion US dollars, and that was mainly driven by the performance in apparel and tea sector products. And so far, for the 9-month cumulative figure, has risen up by 11.83% to report a value of around 10 billion US dollars. So the apparel and textile segment and the tea segment are the two contributors who supported to report this value. And the apparel sector performance or the export income has improved by around 5% for the month of September in 2022 to report a value of 479.8 million US dollars. And tea exports also rose up by 13.16% to report a value of 117.82 million, and that was basically on the back of elevated price and the high export bulk volumes and the tea packet volumes. And however, the rubber-based exports for the period in September has declined by 14.47% to report just a value of 82.19 million, with the poor performance in some segments of rubber. And if you look at the key export destinations for Sri Lanka, US, UK, India, Germany, and Italy were among the top 5 export destinations for Sri Lanka. And then it was reported by the Tourism Ministry in Sri Lanka that 4 more airlines having resumed their flights to Sri Lanka from the next month onwards, from the very first week of November, they are resuming their flights back to Sri Lanka. So, as of that, Swiss-based airline, French flag carrier Air France, Netherlands flag carrier Royal Dutch Airlines, and Russia's airline Azur are going to recommence their flights to Sri Lanka from the beginning of next month. And meanwhile, it was reported that the tourist arrivals to the country has reached to a value of 558,068 for the year so far. And after the resumption of Russia's Aeroflot airline services back to Sri Lanka, it was reported that the Russian travelers to Sri Lanka are getting increasingly higher. So, apart from that, India, United Kingdom were among the top 3 source markets for Sri Lanka. So, most of the implementations are there to attract the European region or European area travelers to Sri Lanka ahead of the winter season. So, that seems to be very positive for the tourism sector, and we are expecting a good future in terms of the tourism sector participants. And let me take you through some updates from the global commodity markets. So most of the commodities ended up with gains, so oil prices especially, with some positive outlook ahead of the economy and with some positive expectations that the aggressive rate hike will come to a stop. The oil prices went up. However, gains were somewhat declined by the widened COVID curves in China that could have a possible effect to have a decline in the demand from the China, which is the highest importer of crude oil from US. And positive hopes again for less hawkish federal stance have positively affected on gold to perform. So gold also ended up with a weekly gain, and copper and aluminium prices also ended up with both these commodities are also ended up with weekly gains. And looking at the international financial markets, most of the financial markets also ended up with weekly gains for this week. And weak economic data from United States somewhat led the expectations of investors to for their anticipations have been lit up as they expect the Federal Reserve to stop their aggressive rate hike. However, some disappointing results from the tech giants, the Microsoft and some other gigantic tech-related companies have slashed investigates by the weekend. And European shares also outperformed during the week as the anticipated, the better than anticipated earnings somewhat managed to settle off the economic boost. And amid the appointment of the new Prime Minister in UK, and however, the European Central Bank has increased their key policy rates by another 75 basis points, and that could have negatively affected on the investor sentiment by the week end. And Indian shares also closed higher given the boost from the middle sector stocks and with some anticipations regarding the Federal Reserve to stop their rate hike. So these are the points that I got to share from my end. So from here onwards, Hari will continue the presentation. Over to you, Hari.
Thank you, Sachini. So, looking at US oil during this week, what we can clearly see is that the price got rejected over the level of daily support 82 US dollars per barrel, where it made a low of 82.10 on the 18th of October, and we can clearly see that the price actually reversed from that area and managed to break 16th August low, which is 85.74, and heading towards the next daily resistance of 90 to 92 US dollars per barrel. So in this case, if the price manages to break the current daily resistance at 1992, we might be able to expect the price reaching the high of 93.62, which is 10th of October high. And once it surpasses that current high, we'll be able to see it testing the daily resistance 100, So this could only happen if the price starts to trade about the 20, 50 and 20 EMAs. And if it continues to get rejected like the previous timeline, previous few weeks, if it gets continuously rejected from this daily resistance 1992, then we might be able to expect a consolidation over the area of 80 to 92. So that could happen as well. Whereas the RSI remains at the mid range at 54.49. So for as of 28th October, the RSI managed to close at 54.49. So like I said, if the price starts to trade above the moving averages, we have a solid momentum that it could basically break the daily resistance and head towards the psychological area of $100 per barrel. So looking at our all share index during this week, what we clearly have is, so during this week, ASPI made a small reversal over the level of daily support 8,450, 8,500, and we were able to see that there was a wick, a lower wick somewhat around in the mid of October as well. And end of October, as over the past few days, we were able to see a reversal made during the area of daily support 8,450, 8,500. So it still seems to be quite bearish as the index is trading below 50 and 20 EMAs. So this indicates a bearish momentum. If there is enough volume and demand, the daily resistance 8,850, 9,000 being a psychological area again could be tested. And breaking above 9,000, we have certain key areas as 9,240 and the next daily resistance as 9,450, 9,500. So rejection from this area of 8,813 plus the key area of 9,000 could initially bring down the index back to the level of daily support 8,450, 8,500. And looking at the RSI also, it's in the mid-range still at the level of 39.54. So like I said before, the index needs to trade above the moving averages in order for us to see at least a short to medium term bullish momentum, as so far it seems to be quite bearish as it is trading below the moving averages. And adding to the list, we have a topic pick of the week, which is Alumex PLC. And looking at Alumex, the price made a reversal over the level of daily resistance 10.511 and now trading below both the moving averages that I had at 50 and 20 EMAs, whereas it tested the daily support level 8.5 LKR per share. So looking at the RSI also 47.8, which is in the mid range. So basically this is the weekly chart that I have taken for a clear outlook. So we have a higher high formation over here, and the higher low formation is in still not yet formed. So in this case, we might have to watch for this key area of daily support 8.5, and reversal from this area could initially bring the price back to 9.3, 9.5, and also breaking about that key area of 9.5. We have the daily resistance 10.5, 11, whereas the next key daily resistance would be at around the level of 13, 13.5. So let's hope for the best, and let's switch to the daily chart as well for a clear outlook from the daily chart. Here in the daily chart also, the price seems to be trading below the moving averages, but acting this 8.5 daily support, acting as a strong support level, a demand level. We might be able to see some sort of rejections happening over this area. So if the price manages to trade about the level of 50 and 20 EMAs, then we have a clear outlook that the price would initially hit towards the 10.5 level price level after breaking above 9.3, 9.5, and also crossing above the moving averages. So however, if the price fails, the price would actually consolidate or even make a breakout below the level of 8 rupees and head towards the level of 7.2. So this is the clear outlook from the daily and the weekly chart. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please do subscribe and like this video. Have a great week, and thank you very much.